contribution to today's report was largely to do with the statistical analysis of the co-occurrence of childhood traumas and conflict-related traumas. But what we found was that there's a small proportion of individuals in Northern Ireland who experience co-occurring adversities during childhood, and that a number of those individuals also experience adversities which are directly related to the Northern Ireland Troubles. Exposure to these types of adversities then lead to an increased risk of endorsing psychopathology, so an increased risk of people meeting the diagnostic criteria for things like mood disorders, anxiety disorders, substance use disorders, and of course suicidal ideation and behaviour. Clearly it makes it very difficult for individuals to function if you're at odds with psychopathology and you're withdrawing, for example, then it's very difficult to function both socially and occupationally. Our research would suggest that yes, there is definitely the intergenerational transmission of trauma, and there's a growing body of research about epigenetics which say that the trauma DNA essentially is within the parent and it's passed down to the child. So there's biological transmission, social transmission and psychological transmission. There's a recent study published by some researchers in America. It's called the Cherry Blossom Study. What they did was they took some mice and they exposed these mice to electric shocks by a grate that were under their feet, and with each electric shock that the mice was exposed to, they paired it with the scent of a cherry blossom. Then they took the mice away, they bred the mice, and the children of those mice were exposed to the scent of the cherry blossom in the absence of the electric shock and demonstrated a fear response to the scent of the cherry blossom. So the research identified that these mice, the mice pups, had increased receptors in their nose for cherry blossom scent because it was a genetic transmission of the shock. I just think it's very important, like a lot of the speakers were saying today, it's really important that we have that trauma perspective and that people who are dealing with individuals who present with mental health issues actually ask the question, have you been exposed to trauma? Have you had a traumatic experience? Because often that question isn't asked, and if the question is not asked, then how can we properly help these individuals?
Foundation for Peace was set up after the Warrington bomb in 1993, and I work on a project called Survivors for Peace, and I work with people affected by the Troubles in the UK, in Great Britain and also over in Ireland. So that's my interest. Apart from working with Colin and Wendy, who lost their son Tim in the Troubles, my personal experience is limited to working with people who've been affected by conflict of all types. That's the Troubles, people from abroad affected by Gaza, Congo, also people affected by 7/7 and Islamic extremism. So a broad range of people I've worked with, ex-service personnel, veterans, people who lost loved ones to acts from the Troubles. And I see it in PTSD and various forms of trauma effects. One young woman that I work with, her mother died following the Warrington bomb. She was a baby in arms in the attack. She now works in our office and she attends our programmes. The effects on the veterans that I work with, the families all suffer as well. We run programmes, families living with trauma, to help the people who live with the people affected by trauma, so they understand how it works for them. We'd like to see more sort of east-west as well as north-south cooperation, some joining up of services for people. I think it was well said in today's presentations about trauma-focused and trauma-aware interventions. I think I made a note of that specifically, as that's exactly what we need. Funding's a perpetual issue. We are lucky that we've secured funding for another year for our project, but our argument is that because terrorism is a low-frequency but high-impact event, it's not enough to expect an organisation like ours to pursue 43 police and crime commissioners, for example, to get funding. We feel it should be across the country and at government level ideally, and we need long-term sustainable funding so that we're not chasing 12 months funding and 3-month projects and things.